Hi, welcome to James Miller Lifeology, where you learn to simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. My name is James Miller. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a composer. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Let's get started. I wanted to take just a quick moment to thank you all who continually support and listen to James Miller Lifeology. I have been so blessed and honored by your continual support. I wanted to make sure that you don't miss out on anything exciting that's happening over here. So make sure you sign up for my free newsletter at jamesmillerlifeology.com. I have a great show for you today. I'm going to help you discover your resilience. I'll also be interviewing Zoe Nikals, a survivor of child abuse and the author of Driving in the Dark, a childhood memoir. Her book tells a story of how she escaped the mother she loved, a mother whose charm and laughter enthralled her, but whose alcoholism and addictions created a world of terror that threatened to destroy her. For more information about Zoe, please visit zoeniklas.com. That's ZOENIKLAS.com. You may also purchase her book on Amazon or in the previous guest sections in both stores at jamesmillerlifeology.com or lifeology.tv. I have some exciting news. Did you know that I'm on the radio 3 times a week? You may hear me on the same station on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m., Fridays at 9:30 a.m., and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. You may also hear me anytime on iHeartRadio as well as on all the other major podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many others. Simply search for the show name, James Miller Lifeology. Are you struggling today to find your purpose? Has mediocrity set in and you can't imagine doing the same thing for the rest of your life? Are your relationships struggling or you aren't sure how to make long-lasting changes in your life? Then today, contact me, James Miller. I will help you recognize the areas in your life that are going really well, and then we'll look at the areas in which you are struggling. We will create actionable solutions to help you create long-lasting changes in your life. You don't have to do this alone. Go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, and click on the page Work with James. Fill out the form, and it will be sent directly to me. Don't let another day go by without finding your way. Your change can start today. Once again, go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, and click on the page Work with James. Fill out that form to get started today. Discovering your resilience. Many times we've seen movies on TV and we think, oh my goodness, I can't imagine somebody survived something like that. But did you realize that you too have survived and overcome so many difficult things in your life? One of the most important things to do is recognize that every person's life and circumstances are different, but the emotions that we experience are the same. That's actually the concept of lifeology. We all have a lesson to learn and a lesson to teach each other. When you reflect on your life, what are the things that stand out to you? What are some things that you experienced that were very difficult for you? Sometimes situations happen and we were victimized in some way. But fast forward to today, are you still a victim? Is it still influencing the way you look at the world? And of course, I'm not minimizing your experience at all because it was incredibly painful and very overwhelming. But we want to look at your resilience. Resilience means being able to overcome a situation or finding hope when there seems to be no hope in a situation that seems dire or hopeless. Sometimes in the moment, we don't realize that we do have hope, but a simple thought of my life is not always going to be this way, or this too will end, or I will not always be this way. That simple thought is the foundation for resilience. When you find hope or a glimmer of hope, it helps you find the direction that you want your life to go. The interesting thing is you may not even realize how much resilience you have. When you think back on one of your previous events, you made it, you survived. You've already gone through the most difficult part of it. Now, the next part is the healing, the journey. What do you do with it? What lesson has come out of that to help you now thrive? Often in situations, we forget that there is a concept of thriving because we've tried to survive for so long. And whether you're currently in a situation or experienced a painful situation, you've taken another breath, and another breath, and another breath. That, my friend, is a form of resilience. Everything in your life has created who you are today. Many of you have heard me use this analogy before about the puzzle pieces. Each event in our life demonstrates a puzzle piece. And when all those puzzle pieces come together, that creates who you are today. Sometimes we try and reshape one of those puzzle pieces and say it should go here or it should go there. But unfortunately, without perspective, we'll often try and pigeonhole one of those pieces into something else. And unfortunately, that's a reactive experience as opposed to a proactive experience. And the reason why I say that is the only way that you'll be able to understand your resilience and find your resilience is to ask yourself, when did I experience this feeling before? The intensity may be different, but once again, the feeling is the same. What did you do to move beyond that? How did you find your hope? How did you find that resilience? How did you take your next breath? That's the same concept when it comes to anything you've recently experienced or things that you will experience in the future. You have so much data in your life, which gives you the insight of what to do. And that, my friend, is resilience. So I really want to encourage you today. There's more resilience in you. There's more hope in you than you realized. And if you're struggling today, know that today's events will not always last. You're going to hear an amazing interview with Zoe Nikals, who will inspire you to find your hope, to find your resilience, to encourage you to overcome anything you may be facing or have faced in the past. There is always hope, and there's always resilience. Did you know I have a YouTube channel? That's actually how Lifeology started. I have well over 155 episodes that I've created specifically for you. I do know that many people struggle with listening to a full 30-minute show. So these episodes are about 3 minutes long. Each episode will give you a practical tool or technique that you can practice daily to help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. Simply go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, or go to YouTube and search for my name, James Miller Lifeology. My guest today is Zoe Nikals, who is the author of Driving in the Dark, a childhood memoir. Zoe's story of discovering her resilience and creating her own destiny will inspire you to overcome any obstacle you too may face. Welcome to my show, Zoe.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Well, good. I'm really looking forward to this. Your story itself, when I first read the information, I was blown away about at 8 years old, you decided to find your own way, which many of us at 8 years old are just struggling with different things. So let's jump right into it because we only have a short period of time and I really want people to hear this amazing, transformational, inspirational story. So why don't you walk us through your upbringing?
All right. Well, it's like you said, I had a focus at 8, was when my biological family disintegrated and the main support person, my sister, was taken away by the courts and put in protective custody, but she couldn't get them to take me out. So I was left with an alcoholic, barbiturates addict mother and stepfathers. There were 7. She was married 7 times.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And so I had some good fathers and some very monstrous fathers. But at 8, I found what I needed. I saw what I needed. And what I saw was in the Admiral Theater where I would go and watch movies. And for 2 hours, I was safe and I didn't have to worry about my mother hurting me or doing anything against me. For 2 hours, I was safe. And I watched Doris Day movies. And Doris Day and Debbie Reynolds were the icon of what I thought a good mother would be.
Yes.
And I knew what I had, and I loved my mother. I still do. But I knew it wasn't right. My life wasn't right. And then I found a girlfriend in my neighborhood, and we were playing. We hit it off like wonderfully. And I went to her house, and bam, there was her mother. It was the epitome of what I knew a good mother could be. She cooked. She made meals every day. I mean, their house was clean and they had clean clothes to wear, and she was nice. I fell in love with her. Wow. And consequently, when my family completely disintegrated and I was put in the youth center for the first of 3 different times, because my mother tried to commit suicide, and I saved her in a motel room and got the people to help and come and get her and save her life. And because of that mistake, I was put in the youth center. And
because your mother's mistake, sure.
Yeah. And my girlfriend's family came for me.
That's beautiful.
And I was so terrified and all alone in the dark, and I was crying, and I hadn't done anything wrong, but my stepfather said that he didn't want me anymore, and especially if my mother wasn't there, he couldn't take care of me, so he put me in the youth center. And that night when I was so frightened and so in the dark with all those kids, I heard a voice, and the voice said to me, "Don't worry, Mary Zoe, you'll be fine. Now go to sleep."
Oh, that's
there
beautiful.
There wasn't anybody in the room. It was, and I went, okay, I can believe that voice. And that inner rising has helped me countless times in my life. And I got myself adopted at 18 and I graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
I've been married for over 43 years to my college sweetheart.
Oh, that's amazing, Zoe. I love it. This is so inspiring. Oh my gosh. I'm teary-eyed just as I hear you say this. It's a beautiful story. Yes, it really is. How did you, when you're 8 years old and you're hearing all these things, at 8 years old, like I said at the very beginning of this, that most children don't understand the concept of life, and so you had to grow up so quickly, and then to hear that people didn't want you, or your stepfather didn't want you, or all these things were happening. How did you define what your own existence, your own well-being? How did you find that at that time?
That's a very good question. I always had a kind of an inner rising, a fierceness within myself. It's just part of my makeup. When I was born, I was 7 months, I was premature. I spent 2 months in an incubator. I was 2 pounds, 11 ounces. And I made it. And so I figure just almost on the biological side, the cellular level,
yes,
I'm a fighter.
Yes, you are. That's a great way to say that. Yes, that's beautiful. When you found that you were in the foster care system and you were struggling to find your identity and lived with a different family, how was it for you to separate from your biological family?
Well, it was really, I would say, quite simple, because what I had was so bad, anything would have been better.
Okay.
So when I came into a normal household where there wasn't fist fighting and barbiturates taking, and they would throw drinks at each other and hit the walls. And she was very good at slicing her wrists.
Oh, goodness.
So I figure from the violence and the drunkenness that I had in my past, I knew I didn't want that. So it kind of
that was your baseline.
Clarified my picture.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And unfortunately it was just so dramatic, and that's what your baseline was. So as you realize what is healthy for you, and even as you grew up, you immediately knew anything that was at that threshold of violence or addiction, that was obviously not something you wanted. It's difficult at times because sometimes we feel torn between two things. And I'm going to speak, these are my words, not your words, but you said that you still love your mother. So the concept of loving a person, but also not wanting that person in their life, sometimes we feel we have to choose one or the other. And in my field, we have what's called a dialectic. A dialectic is a fancy term that basically says you can have two opposing things exist in the same time. For example, if you are at a funeral and you're really sad and you're crying because you miss someone, but yet you think of a funny memory and you just start laughing, but yet you're still sad. Both of those emotions can exist in the same plane or the same situation at 100%. And I think sometimes we, as individuals, sometimes conceptualize things and I can only do one thing or feel one way or and not feel the other way. But sometimes those things can exist at the same time.
Yes, they do. And there were times when it was so difficult that sometimes I really hated my mother for what she did.
Sure.
But I also loved her fiercely because there were so many good things about her. And she would show me these good things when she wasn't drugged. And when she showed that woman, that really good woman down deep,
yes,
I loved that woman. And as an adult, as a parent, I have a lot of sympathy for her. But I had to, it was in my mind, to survive, it was going to be her or it was going to be me.
Yes.
And I decided very early on that I was going to continue to tell truth to power until they finally believed me. What I was telling was the truth.
Yes.
And I walk around on a daily basis with my two angels on my shoulder. I have Zoe, my biological mother, on one shoulder, and I have Margaret, my adopted mother, my love of my life, on my other shoulder. And I figure if I tack between the two poles there, I will be pretty on the straight and narrow.
That is very funny. How have you found in your own family You're married, you said, with your college sweetheart, which is beautiful. How have you found that your upbringing has influenced your own family?
Well, my biggest fear when I married my most wonderful husband
Mm-hmm.
was that somehow I wasn't good enough, that maybe, just maybe, I'll turn out just like Zoe.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't want to be like Zoe at all. And so I entered this life with David kind of on edge. Because I always watch my behavior. Am I showing craziness like Zoe? Am I? Is this cocktail one too many?
Sure, yeah.
It's just it really is with me. But like I said, I have Margaret too, and we are just very truthful to each other, and we're very kind to each other. It's a good marriage, and
Yes.
I just don't want to be Zoe. That's
Yes,
all.
yes. Well, what I'm hearing you say as well, and I'm sure my listeners may have picked up on this, but even if not, but structure is one of the most important and healthiest things we can give ourselves. So as a little girl, you didn't have that structure from your mom because Zoe would be a certain way. She would be, one minute she'd be this beautiful, amazing woman, and the next minute you would see the addict side of her, which is very self-serving and very self-seeking. And so there was instability there. Then you go to your best friend's house, and the mother and the attributes that were demonstrated in that household was very structure-oriented. Dinner, clean clothes, laundry, loving, affection, all that is a continuous form of structure. And so you were able to recreate that. And it sounds like in your adoptive family, but also with your husband as well. I think that's one thing we all need to remember, that if our life does not have structure in certain areas, mediocrity will set in. And then pretty soon we will not grow and develop because we continually allow for too much downtime or too much time to be involved in things that do not have a purpose. They're just simply either a holding place or they can be self-destructive as well. So I think that's really what I'm hearing for the most part is you were able to create healthy structure in your life, which then translated to all other areas of your life. And then now you're able to perhaps even teach that without realizing it in your book and with all your speaking as well.
Well, I had to create my own structure.
Yes.
But the worst thing that ever happened was the night that she made me drive with her from West Seattle to Wenatchee in the middle of the night, in a summer night. And she had a seizure in the mountains and pulled over and said I had to drive the rest of the way. It was a huge car, and I was so little that I couldn't see over the steering wheel. I had to see underneath the steering wheel and over the dash. I had about 3.5 inches, and I could just barely touch the pedals with the tip of my tennis shoe. And I drove that car in the dark to Wenatchee. And when I finally got there through traffic, she just yelled at me, "How could you be so stupid? You were doing so well. You're a stupid child, stupid."
Gosh.
And but we were alive. So I came down with 4 reasons of why I had structure, why I survived. One is grab the wheel. Don't let any crazy drunken person put you in jeopardy. That's my first thought. The second one was don't run over anybody. And the reason I say that is that I hated people, because of what was done to me. But my foster adopted parents taught me to treat each person as an individual.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean. I try to cherish each person I meet and use their good qualities for me to grow. The third one was follow the flashing white line. I followed that white line through the dark. I was so scared. There was no spit in my mouth. I could barely breathe. I thought I was going to faint, but I followed it because I knew I wanted to survive. I wanted to get where I was going. And I always follow the Lord, my inner rising.
Yes.
I follow that voice, and it saves me countless times. And the last thing I learned through that night was the fact that I'm worth it.
Yes,
I don't
you are.
stop. I keep going. And those are the 4 steps that I use for problem solving throughout my life. And I figured that out when I was 11.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry you're in that position, but the fact that you were able to have that definitive defining moment, and it allowed you in countless ways to overcome so much adversity you faced.
I was lucky. I was so lucky.
So you're blessed. Yes, you were. Yes.
And I'm blessed.
Yes.
And
With the readers who read your book, what do you want the takeaway to be for them?
that no matter how awful and hurtful it is, you can grow out of that. You can get beyond that. I did. And I did it. They can do it.
Yes.
You don't have to be pigeonholed. And, I took that ACE test, the adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I have 9 out of the 10.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But I am not, I'm not running around with pantyhose on my head, firing a long gun. It's just, I use those challenges as a way to get stronger and grow forward. And that's what I want people to realize, that you can take this mess and you can make something out of it. You can make a happy life, a joyful life, a loving life. And that's what my adopted family taught me.
That is beautiful. Do you still see your biological family?
Unfortunately, they're all dead now.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
My sister Gail died in 2006. My mother died. Zoe died in 1975. I saw her just before she died. I showed her that I was going to get married, and her response was, "Well, I hope you have better luck with men than I did. I couldn't find one worth a damn."
Well, that is a blessing, because she wants you to have someone better. I'm trying to reframe that.
So, she died, and my father, who was an alcoholic, my biological father, she dropped him soon after. I think he was number 3 of the 7. So he died in 1968 from cirrhosis of the liver. Okay. So they're all gone. But I promised my adopted father in 2013, that I would finish telling the story of our life together, my upbringing and my interaction with the family and how it all turned out. And I promised him when he was dying that I would finish the book. That's beautiful. And I
here
did.
You are today. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me about some of the reviews you've received from this book.
Oh, they have been so moving. I've had quite a few professional folks, psychoanalysts, doctors, read this and say it's poignant, it's clear, it's a description of dysfunction that is just, it's classic.
Yes.
And a lot of the folks in the medical field have said that they are using my book in relationship to their patients and their healing.
Oh, wow. What an honor.
I also had a librarian in Seattle, a friend of mine, who had a kiddo in the class. I think she was a 6th grader. And she was unhappy at home. And so my librarian friend said, "Well, here, read this book." And the kiddo came back full of joy. And she said, "Oh, I had no idea somebody suffered the same way I am. Oh, wow. They made it." So, and I have had that happen to me time and time again.
That's amazing. Wow.
It just thank you, God.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's so interesting, because when we're going through situations like that, from whatever level it is, but for each one of us, it's traumatic. We don't realize on the other side of it, when there's perspective, when we find that healing in whatever way that may be, how much of an impact we have on other people, or how much our story, or how much the lessons we've gleaned throughout our life can revolutionize someone, can give them that hope, that glimmer of hope when there seems to be no hope. And I'm so glad I'm able to share with you and talk with you today about this as well, because I'm inspired by this, and I know my listeners are going to be inspired as well when they hear it.
Oh, thank you, James. That's
My
really,
pleasure.
really kind.
My pleasure. Well, Zoe, unfortunately, our time is up. If my listeners would like to find out more information about you and to purchase this book, Driving in the Dark, A Childhood Memoir, where would they find this information online?
It's on Amazon. It's in paperback form, Kindle, ebook form. I also narrated the book myself. It's on ACX, Audible, and iTunes. I also wrote a play and a one-woman show, and it's on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful.
Driving in the Dark, a Childhood Memoir, and Zoe Nikals. And I had the whole show, a one-woman show, 2 hours long, and I had it videotaped when I did it in front of an audience. And so, because I've always acted out what bothered me.
Yes.
And so that was my healing.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, my listeners also know that if they can't find your book, Driving in the Dark, A Childhood Memoir, anywhere else, just simply go to the store in the previous guest sections in both of my websites at jamesmillerlifeology.com or at lifeology.tv. It will connect them directly with Amazon. Zoe Nikals, thank you so much for being a fantastic guest on my show today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and blessings to you.
I also want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in today. Please subscribe to this radio show through whichever portal you joined with us today, or please go to my website where you may sign up for my free newsletter, watch my YouTube episodes, read the articles I've written specifically for you, or you may enroll in the Lifeology Academy where you can take self-directed courses which will help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. If you'd like to personally work with me, be a guest on, or advertise on this show, simply visit jamesmillerlifeology.com. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms under the name James Miller Lifeology, except for Twitter, which is James M. Lifeology. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you soon.